My name is Carson Porter. I'm 28 years old, and the moment my mother's hand connected with my face, shattering the silence of our kitchen, was the moment I finally woke up. Before I tell you about the courtroom showdown and the devastating price they eventually paid, let me know where you guys are watching from in the comments. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. To understand why a grown man would stand there and take a slap from his mother, you have to understand the house I lived in. It wasn't a home. It was a kingdom, and I was the serf. We lived in a split level in Orlando, Florida. The air was always thick with humidity and the smell of swamp grass, but inside our house, the air was thick with something else, expectation. Crushing, heavy expectation. But not for me. Never for me. I was the mule. That's the best way to describe it. I'm a big guy, broad shoulders, the kind of build that makes people assume you played football in high school. I didn't. I worked. From the time I was 16, I was working at my dad's shop or pulling shifts at the local diner. By 28, I was working 2 jobs. I did the graveyard shift at a warehouse, loading pallets until my back screamed, and then I'd pick up shifts at the diner during the lunch rush. My body was falling apart. I had been diagnosed with a thyroid condition 2 years prior. It messed with my energy levels, made my joints ache, and left me feeling like I was wading through wet concrete every time I tried to move. But in my house, sickness was a luxury I couldn't afford. Then there was Tyler. Tyler was 21. He was the golden child. If I was the mule, Tyler was the racehorse. Except he never actually raced. He just stood in the stable and looked pretty while we shoveled the manure. Tyler was in college. I use air quotes because I rarely saw him study. He was supposedly majoring in business administration at the local university. My parents treated this like he was studying to become a neurosurgeon at Harvard. Sure, Tyler is resting. Mom would hiss at me if I closed the front door too hard after working a 14-hour day. His brain needs the downtime. On the morning everything changed, I had just come off a night shift. It was 7 a.m. My eyes felt like they were filled with sand. My throat was tight, a feeling I'd been having lately that scared me. It was a pressure, right at the base of my neck, like a hand slowly squeezing. I walked into the kitchen, smelling bacon. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since 8 p.m. the night before. Mom was at the stove flipping pancakes. She didn't look up when I entered. "Don't touch those," she said, sensing my hand reaching for a piece of bacon on the serving plate. "Those are for Tyler. He has a big day." "I just worked 12 hours, Mom," I said, my voice raspy. "I'm starving." "There's cereal in the pantry," she said, pointing with the spatula. "The generic kind. Save the Lucky Charms for your brother." I sighed, grabbing the bag of stale cornflakes. I sat at the small table in the corner, watching her plate up a feast. Eggs, bacon, pancakes, fresh fruit. It was a breakfast fit for a king. Tyler strolled in 10 minutes later. He was wearing silk pajama pants and a t-shirt that cost more than my work boots. He yawned, stretching his arms, looking fresh and rested. "Morning," he mumbled, sitting down. He didn't look at me. He never really looked at me. To him, I was just part of the furniture, like the refrigerator or the toaster. Useful, but not worth a conversation. "Morning, baby," Mom cooed, pouring him orange juice. "Eat up. You need your strength." I checked my watch. 7:20 a.m. I had to leave in 30 minutes. I had an appointment with Dr. Ramirez, my endocrinologist. It had taken me 3 months to get this slot. The swelling in my neck was getting worse, and she wanted to do an ultrasound and maybe a biopsy. I was terrified. I hadn't told my parents how scared I was because, frankly, I didn't think they'd care. "Hey," Tyler said, speaking with his mouth full of eggs. "Carson, you're taking me to campus today." It wasn't a question. It was a command. I stopped chewing my dry cereal. "I can't. I have a doctor's appointment at 8:15. It's across town." Tyler rolled his eyes. "So? Reschedule it. My Porsche is on E. I forgot to fill it up last night, and I don't have cash. Let's talk about the car." A Porsche Macan. Not brand new, but close enough. Dad had brought it home 6 months ago. A reliable vehicle for a future CEO. he'd said. I drove a 10-year-old sedan with a cracked windshield and an AC that only blew hot air. They paid for Tyler's insurance, his gas, his maintenance. I paid for everything on my clunker, plus I handed them $800 a month for rent to live in my childhood bedroom. Use your credit card, I said, looking down at my bowl. Or walk. It's a nice day. I'm not walking, Tyler scoffed. And the card is maxed. Just take me. It's on your way if you take the highway. It's not on my way, Tyler. It's 20 minutes in the opposite direction. I'll miss my appointment. Mom, Tyler whined, slamming his fork down. Carson is being a dick. I'm going to be late for my lecture. Mom spun around from the sink, her face tight with annoyance. Not at Tyler. At me. Carson, honestly, she snapped. Why do you have to be so difficult? Your brother needs a ride. Just drive him. Mom, I have a medical appointment, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My throat. Remember? The doctor said it's urgent. Oh, you and your hypochondria. Mom waved a dismissive hand. You're fine. You're big as an ox. Tyler can't miss this class. It's vital for his degree. I'm not canceling, I said, standing up. My legs felt shaky, but I locked my knees. He has a car. He has legs. I am going to the doctor. The room went quiet. I never said no. I was the mule. The mule doesn't say no. The mule just pulls the cart. Mom walked over to me. She was a small woman, but she vibrated with a terrifying intensity. What did you say to me? I said no, I repeated, grabbing my keys off the counter. I'm leaving. You are selfish, she hissed. We give you a roof over your head. We let you live here. And you can't do one small favor for your family? I pay rent, Mom. I pay for my own food. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm asking to go to the doctor. Don't you raise your voice at me. She stepped in close. I saw the movement, but my brain didn't register it fast enough. Her hand came up, palm open, and she swung with everything she had. Crack. The sound was like a gunshot in the small kitchen. Her hand connected with my left cheek, right where the jaw meets the ear. My head snapped to the side. For a second, everything went white. Then the stars came, little bursts of light dancing in my vision. My ears started ringing, a high-pitched whine that drowned out the hum of the refrigerator. I stumbled back, clutching my face. The skin felt like it was on fire. I tasted copper. I must have bit my tongue. I looked at her. She was breathing hard, her hands still raised, her eyes wide, not with regret, with fury. Tyler was sitting at the table, a smirk playing on his lips. He looked like he was watching a reality TV show, entertaining, mildly amusing. Then the back door opened. Dad walked in. Frank Porter. He was wiping grease off his hands with a rag, wearing his mechanic's coveralls. He saw me holding my face. He saw Mom standing there, vibrating with rage. He looked at me. Then he looked at Tyler. What's the holdup? He asked, his voice gravelly. Tyler needs to get to school. Carson is refusing to drive him, Mom said, her voice trembling with self-righteous anger. He's putting his own little appointment over his brother's education. Dad turned his cold, gray eyes on me. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't look at the red handprint blooming on my face. Get your keys, Carson, he said. Take your brother. She just hit me. I managed to choke out. The words felt thick in my mouth. Dad. She just slapped me. He looked at me with absolute indifference. Cold as ice, he muttered. It was his catchphrase whenever I complained. Then he delivered the line that broke something inside me that the slap couldn't touch. His future actually matters, Dad said, pointing a greasy finger at Tyler. What are you worth, anyway? You move boxes. He's going to run companies. Know your place. Silence. The ringing in my ear stopped, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I looked at the three of them. The smirk, the rage, the indifference. This wasn't a family. This was a parasite and its hosts, and I was just the nutrient supply. My place, I whispered. I looked at my dad. You're right. My future doesn't matter to you. So I guess I don't owe you anything. I grabbed my folder containing my medical insurance and the lab orders. I gripped my car keys so hard the metal bit into my palm. Carson, don't you walk away from me, Mom shouted as I turned toward the door. If you walk out that door without your brother, don't bother coming back for dinner. I didn't answer. I stepped out into the humid Florida morning. The sun was blinding. I got into my beat-up sedan, threw it into reverse, and backed out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, I saw the front door open. Mom was screaming something. Tyler was standing behind her, looking annoyed that his chauffeur was quitting. I didn't stop. I drove. My cheek throbbed with every beat of my heart. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't driving toward their demands. I was driving toward mine. The waiting room at Dr. Ramirez's clinic smelled of antiseptic and old magazines. I sat in the corner, trying to hide the left side of my face. The handprint was darkening. I could feel the heat radiating off it. A little girl across the aisle stared at me. She tugged on her mom's sleeve and pointed. The mom looked, gasped softly, and pulled her daughter closer. I pulled my baseball cap down lower. Shame is a heavy coat, and I was wearing it in layers. Carson Porter? The nurse called out. I stood up, keeping my head down. When I got into the exam room, I sat on the crinkly paper of the exam table. Dr. Ramirez walked in a moment later. She was a woman in her 50s, sharp eyes, kind smile. She'd been treating my thyroid for 2 years. She stopped mid-step when she saw me. Carson, she said, her voice dropping an octave. What happened to your face? I tried to force a smile, but it hurt. Rough morning. Ran into a door. It was the oldest lie in the book. She set her clipboard down and walked over to me. She gently tilted my chin up. Her fingers were cool against my burning skin. She examined the mark. She saw the shape of the fingers. Doors don't have thumbs, Carson, she said softly. I looked away, blinking back tears. A 28-year-old man crying in a doctor's office. Pathetic. It's fine. It's handled. Can we just check my neck? She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. She respected my dignity, even if I didn't have much left. Okay, let's look at the neck. She performed the ultrasound. I lay there, staring at the ceiling tiles, counting the little dots. 142. 143. The nodules have grown slightly, she said, wiping the gel off my neck. But they look stable. We need to adjust your medication. But Carson, stress is a major trigger for your condition. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. Whatever is happening at home, it's killing you. Slowly, but it's doing it. I sat up, buttoning my shirt. I know. I'm working on it. Are you? She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. Because I see a young man who works himself to the bone and comes in here with bruises. You have a caretaker's heart, Carson. I see how you are with the other patients in the waiting room. You're gentle. You're observant. She paused, then reached into her drawer and pulled out a pamphlet. The hospital is starting a new cohort for the nursing assistant program. It's an accelerated track. Paid training. Full benefits. It starts next week. I looked at the pamphlet. St. Jude's Medical Center CNA to RN Bridge Program. I can't afford school, I said automatically. My parents. The rent is high. It's paid training, she emphasized. You get a stipend while you learn. And Mr. Vargas, the program director, is an old friend. He's looking for people with grit, not kids fresh out of high school who faint at the sight of blood. He needs men like you. Why are you doing this? I asked. Because, she said, handing me the paper. I believe you're worth more than whatever is happening in that house. What are you worth, anyway? My dad's voice echoed in my head. I took the pamphlet. Who do I call? You don't call. You go there. Now, tell him Maria Ramirez sent you. I drove straight to the hospital. My work clothes were rumpled. My face was bruised. But I didn't care. I found Mr. Vargas's office in the administrative wing. He was a short, stocky man with a mustache that looked like a push broom. He was on the phone, yelling about shift coverage. He waved me in. He hung up and looked at me. His eyes went straight to the bruise. "Dr. Ramirez called," he said, skipping the pleasantries. "Said you're a hard worker. Said you have good hands." "I do," I said. "I work 2 jobs. I don't complain." "Can you handle blood?" "Yes." "Can you handle vomit, poop, and people screaming at you when you're trying to help them?" "I live with my family," I said without thinking. "So, yes." Vargas snorted. A small smile appeared under the mustache. "I like honesty. Look, son, I don't care about your backstory. I care if you show up. 6 a.m. sharp. Monday through Saturday. The pay is $18 an hour during training. Bumps to $24 once you're certified. Then we talk about nursing school. We cover tuition if you sign a 3-year contract. Tuition, a salary, a future. I'll be here," I said. "Good. Fill this out." He slid a stack of paperwork across the desk. As I filled out the emergency contact form, my pen hovered over mother and father. I left it blank. "One more thing," Vargas said as I handed the papers back. "You got a place to stay? You look like a guy who needs to clear out of wherever he is." He was perceptive. "I'm working on it," I said. "My buddy Ronnie," Vargas said, scribbling a number on a sticky note. "He's the maintenance supervisor here. He's got a garage apartment. It's not the Ritz, but it's cheap and it's quiet. Tell him Vargas sent you." I walked out of that hospital feeling lighter than I had in 10 years. The humidity didn't feel oppressive anymore. Felt like a warm blanket. I had a job. I had a potential home. I had an exit strategy. But first, I had to go back into the lion's den. I didn't go home immediately. I went to the diner. Not to work. I called in and quit, which felt amazing, but to find Harlan. Harlan was the short order cook. He was a wire-thin guy with tattoos up to his neck and a heart of gold. We'd bonded over grease traps and difficult customers. "Whoa, buddy," Harlan said when he saw my face. "Who did you fight? You should see the other guy, right?" "It was my mom," I said flatly. Harlan's smile dropped. He put down his spatula. "Talk to me." I told him everything. The appointment, the refusal, the slap, the job offer, Ronnie's apartment. "I need to get my stuff out," I said. "But I can't do it while they're there. It'll be a war zone." Harlan wiped his hands on his apron. "Tonight is Tuesday. Isn't that family steak night at that place on the highway? Your brother posts about it on Instagram every week like a tool." He was right. Every Tuesday, my parents took Tyler to a steakhouse. I was never invited because it was too expensive for 4 people. "They leave at 6:30, I said. "They come back around 9 o'clock. "I get off at 6 o'clock, Harlan said. "I'll bring the truck. We'll be in and out like SEAL Team 6. I spent the afternoon at the library killing time. I turned my phone on once. 14 missed calls from Mom. 7 from Dad. Text messages ranging from, "Where are you?" to, "You are so ungrateful," to, "Tyler missed his class. I hope you're happy." I turned the phone back off. At 7 p.m., I met Harlan a block away from my house. He pulled up in his battered Ford F-150. "Ready?" he asked. "Let's do it." We pulled into the driveway. The house was dark. The Porsche was gone. I unlocked the front door. The air inside felt stagnant. I rushed upstairs to my room. My room was small. A twin bed, a dresser I'd had since I was 10, and stacks of boxes. I didn't have much. I grabbed my clothes, shoving them into black trash bags. I took my laptop, my old PlayStation, which Tyler constantly tried to steal, and my lockbox containing my birth certificate and social security card. "Yo, check this out," Harlan called from the hallway. I stepped out. He was looking into Tyler's room. It was huge. A king-sized bed. A massive gaming setup with 3 monitors. LED lights lining the ceiling. Clothes with designer labels thrown everywhere. "This kid lives better than me," Harlan whispered. "And I work 60 hours a week." "Yeah," I said, feeling that familiar burn of injustice. "Let's go." We hauled everything down in 3 trips. As I was carrying the last bag, I stopped in the kitchen. The breakfast dishes were still on the table. Crusty egg yolks, half-drunk juice. They expected me to come home and clean it up. I took a piece of paper from the notepad by the fridge. I wrote 3 words: I quit. Carson. I stuck it to the fridge with a magnet. Let's roll, I said to Harlan. We drove to Ronnie's place. It was about 5 miles from the hospital. A small house with a detached garage. The apartment was really just the loft above the garage. Ronnie met us at the driveway. He was a man in his 60s, skin like weathered leather, holding a wrench. Vargas called. He grunted. You Carson? Yes, sir. Upstairs. Keys under the mat. $400 a month. Includes water and power. Don't play loud music past 10. Don't park in front of my bay door. Deal. The room was simple. A bed, a kitchenette, a small bathroom. But it was clean. And when I shut the door, something miraculous happened. Silence. No TV blaring. No Tyler shouting at his video games. No mom nagging. Just the hum of the window AC unit. I sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled. I was free. The next week was a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline. The CNA training was intense. We started at 6 a.m. We learned how to change sheets with a patient in the bed, how to check vitals, how to chart input and output. My training officer was Miguel, a former Army medic. He was terrifying. Porter, he'd bark. That corner is sloppy. Do it again. Porter, you call that a pulse check? You're petting a cat, not finding a radial artery. Firm pressure. But unlike my father, Miguel's criticism had a purpose. He wasn't trying to tear me down, he was trying to build me up. One afternoon, I was struggling to lift a heavy patient. My back was screaming. Use your legs, Porter, Miguel said, stepping in to help. You're a big guy. Use the machine God gave you. We got the patient settled. Miguel looked at me. You apologize too much. What? You said sorry to the patient 3 times. You said sorry to me twice. Stop it. You have a right to take up space. You have a right to be here. Stand up straight. I straightened my back. Yes, sir. Good. Now go empty the bedpan. I smiled. It was the best job I'd ever had. I kept my phone off mostly, but I bought a burner phone for work. I didn't want them tracking me. I blocked their numbers on my old phone but kept it in a drawer, just in case I needed evidence later. I thought I had escaped. I thought the worst was behind me. I was making money. I was sleeping. My neck swelling was actually going down thanks to the meds Dr. Ramirez adjusted. But the storm wasn't over. It was just gathering strength. A month went by. I received my first paycheck from the hospital. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. Every single cent. No rent to my parents. No covering Tyler's pizza tab. I walked into the local branch of First National Bank on a Tuesday afternoon. I wanted to open a checking account and a savings account. I had plans. I was going to save for a better car. I sat down at the desk of a personal banker, a young guy named Greg. We chatted about the weather, about the hospital. He typed away on his keyboard, humming a tune. Then the humming stopped. I watched his face. His eyebrows pulled together. He hit a few keys harder this time. Then he looked at me and the friendly banter was gone. Mr. Porter, he said, his voice stiff. Is there a reason you didn't mention your other accounts? What other accounts? I asked. I don't have any. Just the joint one with my mom from when I was 16. But I emptied that. Greg turned his monitor screen toward me. According to your credit file, you have 5 active credit cards. A Discover, 2 Visas, an Amex, and a store card for Best Buy. I stared at the screen. The numbers swam before my eyes. That's a mistake, I said, laughing nervously. I've never had a credit card. My dad always said cash is king. Well, Greg said, current balance on the Amex is $8,000. The Visas are maxed out at $10,000 each. And there are 2 personal loans. One originated 3 years ago, one last year. Total, I whispered, Total outstanding debt is roughly $42,000, Greg said. And Mr. Porter, you're in default on 3 of them. Your credit score is 410. I can't open an account for you. In fact, the system is flagging this for collections. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Harder than the slap. $42,000. Can you print that? I asked. I took the thick stack of papers back to Ronnie's garage. I spread them out on the floor like a map of a crime scene. I went through line by line. Best Buy, $1,200. PlayStation 5 bundle. Macy's, $400. Men's designer clothing. AutoZone, $600. Parts. Porsche Service Center, $2,500. New tires and rims. University bursar office, $4,000. I stopped. The dates. The PlayStation was bought on Tyler's birthday. The auto parts were shipped to Porter's garage, my dad's shop. The Porsche service. That was for Tyler's car. And the tuition. My parents had told me they were paying for Tyler's college out of their savings. The inheritance from grandma, they claimed. There was no inheritance. They were paying for it with my credit. I pulled up the credit card applications. Greg had printed the scans for me. I looked at the signature line, Carson Porter. But it wasn't my handwriting. The P was loopy. The T was crossed with a little flourish. It was Mom's handwriting. The same handwriting she used to sign my permission slips in elementary school. The same handwriting she used to write happy birthday to my precious Tyler on his cards. They stole my name. They didn't just use me as a mule. They leveraged my future to finance their present. They knew I had a clean record. They knew I had no debt because I worked for everything. So they bled me dry. I sat there on the floor, the sun setting through the dusty window, casting long shadows across the evidence of my slavery. I felt sick, physically sick. I ran to the tiny bathroom and threw up. When I came back out, I wasn't sad anymore. The sadness had burned away, leaving something cold and hard in its place, like steel. I grabbed my burner phone and called the only person I could think of, Dr. Ramirez. I need a lawyer, I told her. A shark. I don't care what it costs. I'll pay them for the rest of my life. I know someone, she said. Elena Carter. She does pro bono work for victims of financial abuse. She hates bullies, Carson. She'll love this. I met Elena 2 days later. She worked out of a small office downtown that smelled of coffee and old books. She was a tiny woman, but she had the energy of a velociraptor. She listened to my story. She looked at the credit reports. She looked at the fake signatures. This is textbook, Elena said, tapping a red fingernail on the Porsche charge. Identity theft. Fraud. Wire fraud because they did it online. And since your brother is benefiting, he's an accessory. I want them to pay, I said. Not just the money. I want them to stop. I want them to know they can't do this. Oh, they'll know, Elena smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. But Carson, if we go down this road, it's nuclear. You're sending your parents to prison. Are you ready for that? I thought about the slap. I thought about the cold as ice. I thought about Tyler's smirk. I thought about the $42,000 chain they had wrapped around my neck. File it, I said. Burn it down. Elena got to work. We filed police reports. We froze my credit. We sent dispute letters. But the rail bomb dropped a week later. The police detective assigned to the case, Detective Rossi, called me in. He was investigating the Porter's garage charges. He had seized some records from my dad's shop under a warrant. Carson, Rossi said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. We found something else. It's not directly related to the credit card fraud, but it goes to intent. It shows malice. What is it? It's from an old security backup drive. Your dad keeps recordings of the shop floor. He pulled out a photo, a still frame from a video. It was dated 2 years ago. The date was stamped in the corner. June 12th. I froze. June 12th. That was the day before my entrance exam for the technical college. The day my car mysteriously wouldn't start. In the photo, my dad was under the hood of my sedan. He had a pair of wire cutters in his hand. He was looking over his shoulder, checking if anyone was watching. Then, in the next frame, he was cutting the main ignition wire. He didn't fix my car. He broke it. He sabotaged me. He knew if I passed that exam, I would leave. I would get a job somewhere else. I wouldn't be there to work the night shift at the warehouse and hand over my paycheck. I wouldn't be there to serve Tyler. He cut the wire to my future. I stared at the photo. My hands shook. Tears hit the glossy paper. This hurt more than the debt. The debt was greed. This was pure evil. A father clipping his son's wings so he couldn't fly away. Add it to the file, I told Rossi. My voice sounded like gravel. Add everything. The wheels of justice turn slow, but when they catch traction, they crush everything in their path. For 3 months, the investigation continued in silence. My parents had no idea. They thought I was just sulking in some apartment, probably struggling to eat. They didn't know I was building a guillotine. I was promoted at the hospital. I finished my CNA training at the top of my class. I was now working in the ER handling trauma cases. I saw car accidents, shootings, heart attacks. Put my family drama in perspective, but it also hardened me. I learned that life is fragile, and wasting it on toxic people is a sin. Then came the day. I was at work when my burner phone buzzed. It was Elena. "It's happening," she said. "Warrants are executed. They're picking them up now." I didn't feel happy. I felt a grim satisfaction. According to Rossi, the police arrived at the house at 7 a.m. Ironically, breakfast time. They arrested Mom in her bathrobe. They arrested Dad at the shop. They seized the Porsche Macan from the driveway. Tyler came running out, screaming that it was his car, until the officers pointed out that legally, it was my car, and since it was bought with fraudulent funds, it was now evidence. They were booked into the county jail. The arraignment was the first time I saw them in 4 months. I sat in the back of the courtroom with Elena. I wore my scrubs because I had to go to work right after. I wanted them to see me in my uniform. I wanted them to see that I was surviving without them. When they were led in wearing orange jumpsuits, the change was shocking. Mom looked small and gray without her makeup and hair done. Dad looked furious, his jaw working like a piston. Tyler wasn't arrested yet, but he was in the gallery, looking terrified. He had no car, no cash flow. The prosecutor read the charges. Identity theft 12 counts. Credit card fraud. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. Turns out Dad wasn't declaring the income he made using the parts bought with my credit. The judge set bail at $100,000 each. They didn't have it. Their assets were frozen. They spent 3 weeks in jail before a public defender got the bail lowered. The trial was set for 6 months later. During that time, they tried to reach out. Letters came to the hospital. "Carson, please. This is a misunderstanding. We're family. You can't do this to us. Tyler is depressed. He needs you." I gave the letters to Elena. She added them to the harassment file. The trial itself was a circus. Their defense strategy was pathetic. They claimed I had given them permission to use my name, that it was a verbal agreement, and that I was now lying because I was a disgruntled child angry about being asked to move out. It was insulting. But then Elena put me on the stand. "Mr. Porter," she asked, pacing in front of the jury, "did you authorize the purchase of a Porsche Macan?" "No," I said clearly. "I drive a 2008 Honda Civic." "Did you authorize the tuition payments for your brother?" "No. I was told he had an inheritance." Then came the kill shot. "Your Honor, the prosecution would like to introduce Exhibit G, the photo, the grainy, black and white photo of Dad cutting my car wires. It was projected onto a large screen. The jury gasped. I watched the jurors' faces. I saw disgust. I saw anger. Mom put her head in her hands. Dad just stared at the screen, his face turning purple. "Mr. Porter," Elena asked me softly, "what happened the day after this photo was taken?" "I missed my entrance exam," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I couldn't go to school. I had to keep working at the warehouse to pay for the repairs. Repairs my father charged me for. That was the nail in the coffin, charging me to fix the sabotage he caused. The prosecutor also brought in a surprise witness, a woman named Ashley, Tyler's ex-girlfriend. She took the stand, glaring at Tyler in the gallery. Did Tyler attend classes at the university? The prosecutor asked. No, Ashley said, popping her gum. He dropped out first semester freshman year. He said it was too early in the morning. He used the tuition money to buy skins in video games and to mod the Porsche. The courtroom murmured. Mom looked up, shock written all over her face. She didn't know. The golden child had played her, too. It was over. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, the tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. We find the defendant, Frank Porter, guilty on all counts. We find the defendant, Martha Porter, guilty on all counts. The sentence was handed down 2 weeks later. The judge was not lenient. He called their actions predatory and a grotesque violation of parental trust. The price: Frank Porter, sentenced to 3 years in state prison. No parole eligibility for 18 months. Martha Porter, sentenced to 3 years of strict probation and 500 hours of community service. Restitution: they were ordered to pay back the full $42,000 plus interest and legal fees. The house: to pay the restitution and their own mounting legal debts. The judge ordered the liquidation of assets. The house, the kingdom where I was the serf, was seized and put up for auction. The Porsche, confiscated and sold at police auction. As the bailiffs moved to cuff Dad to take him into custody, the court was dismissed. I stood up to leave. Dad stopped as he passed the aisle where I was standing. He looked older, defeated, but his eyes were still cold. He leaned in, the chains on his wrists jingling. You happy? He rasped. This destroys everything. The business, the house, us. I looked him in the eye. I didn't see a father. I saw a stranger who had held me hostage. No, Dad, I said, my voice calm and steady. You did this. You cut the wires. You signed the papers. I just turned on the lights. You're nothing, he spat. I'm a registered nurse, I corrected him. And I'm debt-free. They dragged him away. Mom didn't look at me. She was crying, clutching Tyler's arm. But Tyler looked at me. He looked terrified. He realized the bank of Mom and Dad was closed. Forever. I walked out of the courthouse. The Florida sun hit my face. Felt different now. It didn't burn. It warmed. I saw Dr. Ramirez and Mr. Vargas waiting for me by the steps. My chosen family. It's done, Vargas asked. It's done, I said. We went to a bar nearby. Harlan met us there. We drank cheap beer and ate nachos. We didn't talk about the trial. We talked about football. We talked about the weird patient in bed for who thought he was Napoleon. We laughed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. 3 years have passed since that day in court. A lot has changed. I'm no longer a CNA. I went back to school, sponsored by the hospital. I'm now a fully certified RN, registered nurse. I work in the ICU now. It's high stress, high stakes, and I love every second of it. I make a good salary, a real salary, one that belongs to me. I fixed my credit. It took endless phone calls and paperwork, but my score is now in the high 700s. I bought a house. Not a big one, but it's mine. It has a porch where I sit and drink coffee in the mornings. It has a guest room where Harlan crashed for a few months when he was between apartments. It has a kitchen where I cook whatever I want, and nobody slaps food out of my hand. I hear things about my family through the grapevine, mostly through old neighbors who run into them. Frank, he got out of prison 6 months ago. He's a felon now, so he lost his business license. The shop is gone. He works at a scrap yard crushing cars. Poetic justice, if you ask me. Martha. She lives in a small, run-down apartment complex on the bad side of town. She works at a dry cleaner's. She looks 10 years older. She sent me a letter last Christmas. It wasn't an apology. It was a request for money. Your father is having a hard time finding work, she wrote. I burned the letter in my backyard fire pit. I watched the smoke rise and disappear, just like my obligation to them. Tyler, this is the part that really seals it. Without the Porsche, without the fake tuition money, and without mommy and daddy to coddle him, Tyler crashed hard. He works at a convenience store on the night shift. I actually walked into that store once, about a year ago, by accident. I was stopping for gas. I walked in to pay. He was behind the counter, wearing a green vest, looking tired and miserable. He saw me. His eyes went wide. He looked at my scrubs, my badge that said Carson Porter, RN, the nice watch on my wrist. Then he looked down at his name tag. "Hey," he said, his voice small. "Hey," I said. You doing okay?" "I'm doing great, Tyler," I said. "Keep the change." I walked out. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt nothing. He was just a guy I used to know. I still see Dr. Ramirez for my thyroid checkups. The levels are perfect. The nodules shrank. She was right. The stress was killing me. Once I cut the tumor, my family out of my life, my body healed. I'm dating someone now. Her name is Sarah. She's a respiratory therapist. She knows the story. When she met my family, Ronnie, Vargas, Harlan, Miguel, she smiled and said, "You have a great dad." She was pointing at Ronnie. "Yeah," I said. "I do. People talk a lot about blood is thicker than water. But the full quote is actually, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the bonds you choose are stronger than the ones you're born into. I learned that the hard way. I paid a high price for my freedom. I lost the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I went through the humiliation of bankruptcy, the trauma of a trial, the pain of realizing my father sabotaged me. But look at what I bought with that price. I bought my dignity. I bought my future. I bought a life where I can look in the mirror and like the man staring back. If you are listening to this and you are in a situation where you feel like the mule, where you feel like you are being set on fire to keep others warm, please listen to me. You are worth more. Your future matters. You have the right to say no. You have the right to walk away, even if it means walking away from family. That slap in the kitchen was the most painful thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the best. It woke me up. Don't wait for the slap. Wake up now. Thank you for being patient and walking this road with me. You guys are amazing. Please help me out by liking this video and commenting number 1 down below, so I know you stuck with me to the end. It not only helps more people find this story, but it tells me that my experience meant something to you. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to keep sharing.